Have you ever wondered how some people were able to raise their scores and hit the high 170s? Throughout our years teaching the LSAT, it has been found that it wasn't about innate skill or intelligence. There were certain character traits that separated those who improved significantly from those who did not. Let's discuss the traits that we consistently found within students who improved rapidly or scored exceptionally well so that you can apply these principles to your LSAT prep. Some of these traits may shock you. One surprising trait of high-scoring Impetus LSAT students was they were not overly focused on their scores. As strange as it may sound, these individuals did not sweat when their practice test score was low. While the LSAT score is of course the ultimate goal, successful test takers know that obsessing over numbers can hinder progress. Impetus LSAT students who scored exceptionally well were not stressed by fluctuations within their practice test scores and were more focused on learning from every single mistake and thoroughly reviewing them to avoid repeating the same mistakes in the future. Their score naturally improved as a result of this mindset. People who saw less progress were constantly focused on chasing the feeling of a higher score rather than putting in the effort to learn. If their score dropped, they would immediately take another practice test or section, hoping to prevent the discouragement of thinking they could have gotten worse. But as a result, they wasted time unnecessarily testing themselves over and over rather than learning from their mistakes, making their inefficient methodologies even more habitual. Another trait high scorers consistently exhibited was that they were patient. Most students who improved dramatically were very patient. Interestingly, many of these students ended up improving in a shorter time than they expected, whereas people who had set an ultimatum for themselves ended up taking longer to progress. In fact, we have had students who were planning to study for 6 months end up reaching their target scores in less than a month. When people create self-imposed deadlines for themselves, they end up trying to cram. Unfortunately, this ends up doing more harm than good because you cannot force yourself to understand a concept overnight. Some concepts will take longer to learn. As a result, they end up skimming over important skills and end up placing undue stress on themselves, which inadvertently slows down progress. On the other hand, slowing down and focusing on truly understanding concepts helps the student actually improve much more quickly. Another interesting finding was that high scorers were process-oriented. Impetus LSAT students who achieved a 175 plus were never satisfied just from the fact they got a question correct. They wanted confidence, which came through understanding a replicable step-by-step process they could rely on in times of uncertainty. As a result, even if they got a question correct, they would ask about the correct way to approach the question if they were not sure about the answer they selected. For example, rather than just asking, "Why is a wrong?" they would ask questions like, "What mistake did I make within the process that made me select the incorrect answer? And how can I avoid this issue next time?" Trait number 4. They were very consistent. Consistency is crucial in LSAT prep. That doesn't mean you have to study like it's a full-time job, but you should try to squeeze in as much as you can. Impetus LSAT noticed that high-performing students always found a way to study, even in situations where most others would find an excuse not to. For instance, we had a student who was taking courses, working a part-time job, and participating in college athletics. Despite his limited schedule, he managed to squeeze in at least some time to study, even if it was only 30 minutes on certain days. Trait number 5. They were focused on quality, not quantity. Some people swear by taking a large amount of practice tests and have achieved exceptional results. However, most of Impetus LSAT students came after that approach did not work for them. They were highly motivated, but this approach only left them burnt out and frustrated. Contrary to popular belief, it is possible to achieve a high score without taking a high volume of practice tests. At the end of the day, the LSAT does not care about how many questions you completed. It only cares about how well you understand them. Impetus LSAT found that the students who scored a 175 plus would think very deeply about a question and would not move on to the next until they mastered it. We had students ask 8 questions about a single question, which really showed they were trying to understand all the nuances. They thought critically and would even at times argue with the LSAT when reviewing questions. Most of these students started out with much lower scores, so it wasn't about innate abilities. These students thought about the LSAT in a fundamentally different way and this helped them achieve better results. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe for more advice on how to study strategically for the LSAT. We are committed to helping you achieve your goals.